And then there was just this one little vineyard that was dry grown, thick trunks, low bush vines. That was just green, healthy, gorgeous leaves, just singing to the sun. And just, jumped the fence, went and had a look, found these gorgeous little berries that were just racy little red bullets.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Real Wine People. My name is Ben and I grow grapes and make wine in the southwest of Western Australia. Today's guest is Taras Ochota, winemaker, restaurateur, punk rocker, surfer, and all-round good bloke. I caught up with Taras recently at his restaurant Lost in a Forest and had a lovely wide-ranging conversation about wines and life and everything in between. To find out more, you can go to our website realwinepeople.com, where we have show notes and links to what we spoke about today. Well, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Taras Ochota.
And that's a bloody good Bloody Maria too, mate. Gee, everything.
Yummo. So if we have any sound problems, we're just getting back up.
We'll be right.
I guess thanks. I'm here with Taras. We're sitting in Lost in a Forest, upstairs in a pizza joint in an old church. I think service starts in an hour or so it might start to get a bit noisy later. How are you, mate?
Good, mate, good. Yeah,
nice.
Yes, just, what have we got in front of us? A little Bloody Maria, mezcal-based V8 juice, bit of hot chili, just to get the brain cells fired up, I think.
Yeah, nice.
Being a Saturday morning and all, yes.
Yeah, cool. Like, there's things that I'd like to ask because I just never get to see you, and now you're sort of stuck here and I'm
here we are,
in
mate.
front of me.
Yeah.
Did you grow up around here in the hills? Or?
I grew up in Adelaide.
Right.
In the city, but Amber grew up in the hills all her life.
Right.
And when we hooked up 21 years ago, I was working in the Adelaide Hills in vineyards, and she was from here, and we were looking at buying a house, so we, decided, well, if we buy in the city, it's more expensive, and I'm travelling up here every day, so let's, get a little cottage and buy it, renovate it, and we started our lives, I suppose, about 21 years ago.
So that's where you are now?
In the hills.
Place is...
No, that was in Lenswood.
Right.
And then we moved to Basket Range, where we are now, about 8-9 years ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, great spot. How did you and Amber meet?
Well, we had I was actually meeting a friend. This was back in 1998, and at the Austral Hotel for a beer.
Oh, yeah. Wednesday
afternoon, and he said, look, I should be able to get there, but, maybe not. Before mobile phones those days, and he never showed up. And, there's this beautiful blonde girl sort of sitting there studying Indonesian, and I was just, sort of working out a way, how can I, sort of, hello there.
Nice.
And so I said, leant over, this is a good place to study. And we, started chatting, and what happened was we somehow got onto the topics of Volkswagen combi vans.
Yeah, right.
And at the time I owned one, and she owned one. So bang, there was a link, because otherwise she probably would have said, "Piss off, mate." And so we just started chatting about our little trips that we do, and combi talk, and that was that.
Nice.
And we sort of then just started hanging around each other. It's been 21 years, and
jeez.
Yeah, a couple of kids, a couple of businesses, a couple of crazy times overseas. We lived in Sweden for a while, and so
awesome.
Done some crazy things. So she, I think at the time we met, I was about 27, I think, 28, and she was 16. No, I'm joking. 4 years younger, and we're just sort of, in that, I suppose, part of your life where you've done all the crazy things and been slack, and then sort of, started just, coming up with ideas. And I think the two of us together, would just sort of encourage each other to do things and motivate each other, and not just be a, dope smoker that just went surfing and, got the odd job in a vineyard, so she changed my ways, you could say.
Yeah. Similar thing happened to me. So what's... do you still have a combi? I know you...
We do, actually. I mean, mine... I was actually... I used to manage this vineyard in Woodside, in Adelaide Hills.
Mm.
And I had about 20 pruners starting work at 7.
Right.
And I was running late, of course. And I got to this intersection and thought, yeah, I should be able to make it. There's a big truck belting down the other way. I was a couple of minutes from the vineyard thinking I've got to get there, got to get it started, 20 guys, and I'm not there. So I was in second gear, not first, and I thought, yeah, I should be able to just shoot across in front of that truck.
Oh, no.
And, Mr. Truck locked it up because I wasn't going as fast across this intersection and sort of careered off because he locked his front brakes.
Sure.
Careered off to the right. So basically, just T-boned me, and basically the bull bar hit just behind the front seat.
Right.
I suddenly was going sideways and then suddenly rolling. And I think I rolled about 8 times, and of course I wasn't strapped in.
Jesus.
And I was just hanging onto the steering wheel, and the seats came loose, and I remember they were just bobbling around, and with our German Shepherd that we had.
In the car?
Was in the front cab. And just sort of rolling, and ended up in this paddock upside down, ripped the roof off, pushed one side to the other side, and somehow I just crawled out the front windscreen with a little cut on my back.
Wow.
And dog was okay, she had a little cut on her toe. And sort of came out the front windscreen like, whoa, what just happened? And all my stuff strewn all across this paddock because, sort of it was my life. I lived in there. And, there was Melbourne bitter cans sort of pissing out beer, and so when the police came, they were like, okay, buddy, come over here. Tested me. I was obviously, responsible vineyard manager, so I hadn't been drinking at 7 a.m. And, when the ambulance turned up, they thought, oh, this is a fatality for sure. They're looking at the vehicle. And, I was just wandering around like, hey, whoa, what just happened? Anyway, that was the end of that combi. And that actually was a big change in my life because at that time, when you had a combi and your surfboards, and that was my freedom. I didn't own a house or anything. Just working sporadically in vineyards when I was playing in a band as well.
Yeah.
And, just living the life, but no real sort of solid direction. And as soon as that combi van was gone out of my life, because I wrote it off, I had to then buy an old Kingswood for the $1,200 I had in the bank.
Yeah.
And suddenly I didn't have this, bit of machinery that was my freedom. I could go anywhere. Didn't matter what happened. I could just live in that. So that sort of made me think, whoa, I better start thinking about,
what the next
life.
steps are.
Yeah. And so I think a few days later, or, that winter, I was on a vineyard pruning. It was hailing on this hill. And, back then, got paid $10 an hour, something like that. And I thought, I've got to, stop pissing all this money every week, sort of earn the money and then just go woohoo on the weekend. So I better start thinking about, doing something a bit more substantial for the future. And so I had a chat to Amber, and we sort of came up with an idea. Let's buy an old house and renovate it, grow hydro. That'll pay for it. Go on an overseas trip. But unfortunately, Amber was studying teaching. She's like, Taris, no, I'm a teacher. You're not growing hydro, okay, because that's illegal, and then I would lose my license. So, there's no hydro, darling. I'm like, okay, so I got to work a bit harder. So we, just worked and renovated this house, and then we went overseas.
So that house you renovated, and that was... So you had the accident, the house, and then Sweden was after that?
No, then after... So we bought this house, renovated. We went I worked in California. Amber worked in London. And so when I went to California to work in this winery, I bought an old combi van as well.
Yeah, right.
And so when harvest vintage was over, she came from London, and we just headed south down to Mexico, surfing and travelling out into the desert, and
right.
Went to these crazy festivals and just cruising around. But there was at one point in I think it was Ensenada, were sitting in a little bar drinking margaritas, and we just came up with this idea to, let's start our own little wine label. This is back in 2001.
Yep.
And thought, yeah, that's a good idea, and we came up with the name Ochota Barrels, like Ochota Barrels, but without the OC. And, designed this sort of little logo-y thing and just came up with the ideas what it would, mean. And yeah, it's pretty sort of similar, the idea even back then, because, Amber's, she's very, she's a hippie, vegetarian, animal rights, liberation, not into chemicals, big time organics. So yeah, her big influence on me in that project was to, sort of start with, getting grapes that were grown well.
Yep.
And just doing what I'd sort of learnt in these little vintages that I'd done, and working with people that would just do wild ferments and, would pick earlier.
Great. To
capture that natural acidity and not add things and just make these, light, pretty wines. And I suppose there was just a couple of examples. And one big influence is this guy called Seth Coonan.
Right.
He had Coonan Wines. He passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. But I worked for him and lived with him, and we just go surfing in the morning, go to his winery, work.
This is in California?
In California, yeah. And so this trip afterwards in Mexico, we sort of came up with this idea. But then I was going to uni, studying enology.
Yeah, and that was here in Adelaide?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. And then had to, I suppose, get experience. So I just sort of started working for different wineries, sort of left the vineyards.
Yep.
And then, worked for Nepenthe, worked for Two Hands, and then I got a job as a flying winemaker in Sweden, or working for a Swedish company, but working all throughout Europe.
Right.
And this was a company quite big that would make mass volumes of wine for the Systembolaget and the Scandinavian market. So, it was quite a big change. I mean, I might have embellished my resume a bit.
I think we've all done
a bit of bullshit. And but sort of, got thrown in the deep end, and then with that experience, especially working in southern Italy, all the vineyards were farmed organically because it was the cheapest way, and just wild ferments, no additions because they couldn't afford to do it, and we're making these amazing wines and not so amazing wines, and I could sort of see from all this, I suppose it just all these little influences sort of helped us develop our style. So
sure.
And living in Europe, drinking a lot of European wine, especially after working in the Barossa, where the old palate gets a lashing.
Sure.
With oak and high alcohols and extraction and which I loved at the time. This is sort of the Parker days. This is the early 2000s and mid 2000s. But then, sort of the palate went, whoa, I can't handle these 3-course meal wines anymore. I just want to, I love these light, pretty gay wines. Gorgeous, So, and they're beautiful. So I just drank a lot of them in Europe, and that really sort of, I suppose, influenced, how we'd make wine.
Sure. That
picking early, looking at natural acidity and sort of that under extraction, but still the whole time having that foundation from studying enology and working for good winemakers around the world and picking the eyes out really and thinking that works, that doesn't, really like that, not into that, and I suppose you just find your little way but at the same time I was making wine for other people as the day job and just had Ochota Barrels on the side. It was quite small.
And then, what was the first year for Ochota? 08?
2008, yeah. And it was like just I think it was 2 tons of the Fugazi Vineyard Grenache.
Great. And how did you find that vineyard? Was that one that you were pruning at?
No. I just happened to drive past it going to a little surf spot.
Right.
You sort of cut along the sort of the ridge of Blewett Springs and, you'd go through in the middle of summer, stinking hot heat wave. And you just see all these vines, sort of, January, February, just not really coping. And, sort of basil leaves yellowing or dropping off or, just drooping. And then there was just this one little vineyard that was dry grown, thick trunks, low bush vines. That was just green, healthy, gorgeous leaves just singing to the sun, and just, jumped the fence, went and had a look, found these gorgeous little berries that were just racy little red bullets. So then, sort of met the grower.
Right.
And went from there.
And it was it called Fugazi, or that was your...
Well, no, the way that name came about, the first 2 vintages we just called it single vineyard, boring.
Sure. Reserve.
Yes, that's right. And even though it was our only wine.
Sure, yeah. That's how good it was.
But there was one time, because I was making wine for other people, and obviously during vintage you're pretty busy.
Yep.
A few things on, and this little side project, Ochota Barrels, was not easy to manage while you're sort of trying to manage 30 staff in your job or whatever. And so I asked Amber one time, we're going for a surf to the beach, went past the vineyard, checked a couple of other vineyards that I had, was making wine for other clients, and decided that we'll pick, that Thursday. And
right.
I asked Amber if she could drop bins off at our vineyard, say, the Tuesday. And she was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Which vineyard is it? And I was like describing, the one sort of down that road, and there's that little house, little blue house, and she couldn't quite, I'm not really sure, because we went to a few different vineyards that day. And I was like, the one when we're listening to Fugazi. And she's like, oh, yep, no worries. And
that's great.
She dropped the pins off in the right spot. We, made that vintage gorgeously. And so we just started calling it the Fugazi Vineyard.
Sure.
And then, we thought, well, we call it that. Let's put it on the label, sort of just to differentiate it. And then I suppose the same came along with the Slint Vineyard, and we had an old Barossa Vineyard, Shellac Vineyard, and then and everything sort of related, I suppose, to my misspent youth playing in punk bands, and just sort of related the things that I were sort of part of my life, which was back then, a lot of surfing and playing punk music and listening to punk music and wine. I was sort of just learning about wine, and so I just sort of put the 3 together, and Ochota Barrels, that sort of little symbol, was something we developed. I developed one night, actually. A lot of... we live near Copenhagen in Sweden.
Right.
And we...
okay.
So there's a little area called Christiana where...
I've been there a few times.
That marijuana is legal, so I pop over there. And anyway, one night, just, sort of involved in the culture there, and drinking Calvados, a fair bit of Calvados, I love that stuff, apples on fire. And just came up with this little sketch, which then basically was our Ochota Barrel symbol, and I showed Amber that night, and that night she's like, yeah, that's wicked, love it, love the idea. Okay, see you, Taris, goodbye. You're annoying me. And because I was rambling on, so this symbol, it represents sort of that simple going back to basics. There's an organic hedge, there's it's to emulate texture and emotion. It's like just full ramble off my chops sort of bullshit. And so Amber's like, a good one, Taris, see ya. Anyway, in the morning, couldn't remember any of that stuff that I was saying. A couple of snippets.
Sure.
But we stuck with that symbol, stuck with the Ochota Barrels, and sort of just stuck with our style. I suppose the idea was to be unique and not follow the trends. At the time, every sort of, becoming immersed in the wine industry, you have a lot of friends that make wine, and there are certain ways you do things. And I was always, that I suppose that assistant winemaker that was always to my, my bosses, my winemaker bosses, who taught me everything I knew. I still know nothing. But I'd be the one say, why don't we, pick it now? And they're like, mate, it's green as fuck. No, it's not ready, mate. And then we'd get it in the winery, and I'd be like, let's do a wild ferment. No, mate, no, we don't want to make vinegar, and and putting things on the edge, and just want to experiment. And so the only way really I could do that was to play with my own stuff, and if it went wrong, then that was down the drain it went. It was my cost. But I suppose having that experience as a winemaker and working for such amazing winemakers around the world, you learn the basic, the foundation, and after uni and that, even though I've forgotten everything, I think you still develop an automatic foundation. You sort of you come across an issue or problem or a decision to make, and it's just immediate. You sort of just slip right into it, and because all the stars in a way have aligned from your studies and your experience, and if it's your own project, then you're not wrong, because
Sure.
no one can say, "No, Taris, you can't do that."
And when you had your first vintages, was there any pushback or?
Not really. I mean, it was so small, that it wasn't a lot to sell. But I think we were sort of lucky in the time that the wines came out. I mean, for example, Grenache. I chose this Grenache vineyard, and no one was making straight Grenache really back then.
Right.
And I remember going out to the market with the first wines to a couple of shops, and they'd say, "Oh, okay, right, yeah, straight Grenache, Taris. It's a hard sell. No one buys Grenache." I said, "You should maybe make a Grenache Shiraz, or just make Shiraz." And that was sort of the sort of things that you sort of hit the wall. But it just seemed, I think, the way I sort of developed the style to make it a bit more Pinot-like. So they weren't sort of those Grenaches that were trying to resemble Shiraz or Cabernet, and that really helped. And then just the market, I think, changed at that time.
And you were doing all the sales yourself, travelling down to Adelaide?
Yeah. And Melbourne and Sydney used to do them myself in the early days.
Yeah.
But then, as you sort of, move on, and, certain people approach you and say, "Hey man, I can help you do that."
Yeah.
And make life easy. And I'm definitely one for making life easy. So yeah, sure. And, these guys were mates, and trusted them, and they're still doing the same thing now.
Great.
For me all those years. And
so that's Reggie down there.
Yeah. Reggie in Adelaide. There's Joel Amos and Ned Brooks in Sydney.
Yep.
And Melbourne. And it sort of developed from there.
Great.
Really had making wine is one thing. That's the fun part. Selling it, that sucks.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And if you don't sell it, you can't afford to do it again the next year.
No. You've got nice pallets of wine sitting there in the warehouse, which, yes, we've been lucky, and we've kept it small, and, I've made sure that everything that we do in our little shed at home where we make it is kept small, and, there's always attention to detail, and I'm intimate with every ferment, every barrel, without being stressed.
Sure.
Vintage is, we start at 8. Sometimes I'm out in the vineyard earlier than that before. So my dad, who helps me.
Yeah, I met him yesterday.
And a mate,
great guy.
Old Louis as well, who owns Hellbound Wine Bar. So those two, they're sort of my strength during vintage, and obviously Amber, but she now, being full-time mother and running the business side of things, she gets down and does her little project, the home vineyard. But we start at 8 and 5 o'clock. Yeah, sucking beers. Well, we're often sucking beers before that, but we're sort of the roller door goes down about 5, and even if things are, the crush is filthy, the press is still going. It's like 5:30. Well, let's just close the door. Can't see it. Yeah, let's deal with it tomorrow. And so. Yeah, we keep it, very, don't work into the night. Yeah, Don't stress out. Just keep it small, and manageable, where I can just do it myself. Right. And
as far as the styles of winemaking, I guess you're doing, not acidifying, bringing things in a bit tighter, or I guess less ripe than the status quo. Are there any challenges, or any major challenges in making wine in that way?
No, quite the opposite, I think. In terms of doing ferments and things going dry. If you don't have high sugar levels, there's the yeast aren't going to be in an environment where they're suddenly in a 15% alcohol environment that they don't like. So I really try to take a holistic approach, and so the way I suppose our picking decisions have come about is that every year I sort of pushed the boundaries and picked a bit earlier than, because it's the same vineyards we've always used. Sure. And the same growers. And actually one problem would be, with these growers, because, one of them who, Fugazi Vineyard, he was 17 when he planted the vineyard.
Right.
So, and it was planted in 1947. So,
Wow.
So,
That's the same guy that you're dealing with.
Yeah, Gaza.
Awesome.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, he's dealt with a lot of wineries in McLaren Vale over the years with that block. And when I came along, he's like, oh, can we pick Thursday? And he's like, Taris, it's not ready, And I'd go, yeah, just making rosé, mate. Just, okay, yeah, no worries. And I just tell them I was making rosé. And a lot of the girls, I just say, yeah, I'm just making rosé.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, no worries, yeah. Because I was thinking, what the hell are you doing? This is, you're picking at like 12 Beaumet. It normally gets picked at, 15, 16.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just I suppose, that I love greener tannins. So, that sort of, to me, gives energy. But, like with wine, no one's right or wrong. It's all subjective. And I just like, that sort of energy. And it works beautifully because if you're picking earlier and you've got that natural acidity, which, generally it's hard to replicate that, with a packet. Yeah. Natural acidity is just has so much more gorgeous minerality and then your sugar levels are lower, so your alcohol's less, and you have a lower pH, so there's less
chance of spoilage and
bacterial problems, and your colour's brighter and it's racier. To me, it would just make my saliva glands pulse thinking about that sort of nervous tension, that energy that these red wines would have, and I'd make them. And even during my winemaking years, working with these other as an assistant winemaker, and we'd make these gorgeous wines, and I threw Malo, and I'd taste them, go, we should bottle this. Is amazing. And they're like, it's been in barrel for 3 months. This is staying in barrel for 18 months. That was the recipe, and I'm like, what? And I'd, obviously see how they turned out 18 months later, and that's a style that people love. But I was like, we missed the boat. I loved it when it was vibrant and fresh and primary, and so that's a great thing doing your own project, is you can do whatever you want. Nice. And so I started just, my idea is yeast love to be warm. So a lot of people, I suppose, have cold cellars and cold soak and cold ferments, and I pick our fruit, a lot of whole bunch, jump on them straight out in the sun with a cover on, and warm them up. So the juice is sort of percolating down, on that warm fruit. Get the natural yeast on the bloom of the grape just to start fermenting, create a gorgeous CO2 cover. So then, immediately you're safe from oxidation and spoilage, and keep it out in the sun. And I taste the ferments, at least twice a day, and measure the temperatures and the Beaumets and keep an eye on that. So it's a bit of a technical, it's dumb science, but to me, just being all over it in that regard. And so would use the sun and the shade and the warmth of the inside the winery at night if it was a cold autumn night.
Yep.
And just maintain those temperatures. So things ferment beautifully, hopefully go dry quickly, go through Malo dry. And suddenly, people are like, oh, your wine seems so ready, and it's just, not cooling things down and that cold cellar, that thing that you sort of learn, that's the way you should make wine. And I just keep these little yeast that are having a, little orgy in the Turkish bath, just keep them going until they're spent. Yeah. And then suddenly, just let things settle by gravity, and I'd have a taste and go, this is amazing. I've got to bottle this now because I don't want to lose this vibrancy. And I suppose that wasn't being done, I suppose, when we started out. And so that was new. And at the time, I think sommeliers were, opening their eyes to stuff like that. We also had the 2011 vintage, which sort of helped everyone out there, or the good winemakers in 2011 made exceptional wine. There's a lot of crap, and it was a lot of...
I'm sorry, so 11 was a challenging year here?
Very cold. And
right,
wet. Yeah, and a lot of disease pressure, and but some winemakers made, these gorgeous sort of more European-styled wines, and that sort of changed, I think, a lot of the perceptions of, that style of wine.
Right.
And really it was, these amazing sommeliers that, I suppose, looking always at something new, and they were finding that, if, they're working in these lovely restaurants with these amazing chefs, that, they want to prop the food up with a wine that is, not going to take over and be a 3-course meal in itself.
Sure.
It's going to be, sort of really propping up that dish. And so they were really accepting at that time. We're sort of talking, I suppose, late 2000s and, I suppose, 2010.
Yep.
And also amazing wine writers that really got behind, little guys like us and sort of saw the future and really helped us as small little family businesses, have a go and get us out there. And, their amazing words, would sort of spread throughout the community. And suddenly we're in all these amazing restaurants and people are loving it. And then, there's sort of, and then there was the natural wine movement coincided with that. And, everything sort of pulled together of, going back to basics, being a bit more low intervention, organic was important. And so that helped. And it was a really lucky place to be, I suppose, for us. And things just blossomed. Nice. So we didn't go crazy and expand. We just sort of stuck to our small scale.
So you started with the Fugazi vineyard. And so did Slint come?
Yes, Slint. Now the Shellac vineyard, which was a Barossa Marananga vineyard. Barossa Shiraz. That was amazing. And then the Slint vineyard. It's gorgeous little vineyard in Landswood. And so I started with that, and then I might make a rosé.
Yeah.
And then
been
found
telling
another.
people for years you were doing it, so you thought.
And exactly, yeah. And then you find another Grenache vineyard, which is the Green Room vineyard, which is planted 1946, certified organic.
Wow.
And this old Italian grower couldn't sell the stuff, and I was I couldn't tell you the price that I would pay in those early years. We've changed that, sort of brought it up to speed. But the poor guy couldn't get rid of the stuff, and certified organic. 70-year-old crazy gorgeous grapes. That sort of happened, and then Pinot obviously being in the hills, and then Gewurz, and I suppose you just started making wine. So we have at the moment I think 18 or 19 labels, and really, I drink a lot of my wine. My dad, my wife, my friends, family, everyone. And but I made all these wines just to, so I didn't just have one or two wines to drink from. I had a plethora. It was mainly just for my self-interest. And it sort of started like that. And I suppose the idea of not adding things to the wine and trying to farm organically, and it's the same concept of my kids get into our vegetable patch, which we just grow everything organically, nothing at all, just water. And it's that same principle. They go in the garden and they'll sit under a tomato tree and pull down little cherry tomatoes and stuff them in their mouth, and grab a bit of basil and dill and stuff it in their mouth, and chew celery from the stalk right down to the dirt. Sure. And there's no stop, you've got to wash that.
Exactly.
And it's sort of this, it's sort of the similar principle with the way we make wine, because we drink a heap of it. And
that's it. We were the same with when we started our little place in Margs. We're building a house on the property. I had a young boy, another one on the way, and we wanted them to be able to walk out the back door, which was 8 metres to the first vine, and eat dirt or whatever they want to do, and eat a snail probably, and not us be worried about what they're putting in their body.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, probably our Amber's more of an influence on that side of things.
Yeah, I'd probably be dead if it wasn't for Naomi.
Yeah, they're good, those chicks. Yeah, she. Back in the day, because working in vineyards, and I'd bring home a bit of Roundup, to spray the weeds, and she's like, "You're not bringing that into our property," I'm like, "Honey, this is fine. This stuff's fine. Don't worry about it." And she goes, no, it's a chemical. You're not bringing it on this property. I don't, this is even before kids. And I'm like, honey, you can drink this stuff. She goes, go on, drink it. And that was always pretty funny.
Did you drink it?
No, but she was almost there just to prove a point. But so that one of those things. Like I'm pretty lax with say the use of Roundup and glyphosate. I have been. I'm like sure, little spray once or every couple of years she'll be right. And but Amber's been totally on me and say no more of that. And then sort of coincided with all this press about it. That it's carcinogenic and bad for you, and I'm a skeptic. I sort of go whatever, but she's like, mate, just none of that on the property. This is how we're doing things, and she's probably the biggest influence in the way we've gone down that sort of organic low intervention way.
Nice.
So but it's all been a nice little progression. 12 years now.
Wow.
I quit my day job making wine 5 years ago, and I was 6 years ago.
I think people would find that surprising. When you told me that, I was like, oh wow, that's I thought you were doing this for 15 years, sort of by yourself.
Yeah, well, you had to pay the bills until that point where you sort of catch up on things, and we found the time where I could pull the pin. And it just happened when we had our first child, Sage. He was born, he's 6 years old.
Right.
So when he was born, I was working crazy, 100 minimum hours a week during vintage, and just stressed out of my mind, different clients and staff, and I didn't see him. He was like 4 months old, I think. And maybe 2013 vintage, and hadn't seen him for a week because I'd leave 5 in the morning, get home 11 at night, and he was always asleep. And then one night I came home, and Amber was up with him, and he said, give me a little snuggle. I had a little snuggle with a little guy, and he gave me that first little hug. And I was like, my heart melted, and I just thought right there and then, I'm not doing this again. So then back to the winery basically the next day with a measuring tape, and measuring out the size of barrel racks.
Oh, that's great.
Size of this and that, and then measuring out where we had an old shed, an old apple packing shed. And so, because I had been making a couple of small batches in the shed, dirt floor.
In the apple shed?
Yeah, just at Basket Range. And so then I thought, I'm going to quit work. And I remember sending that email, sitting on the sun, under the clothesline, just send. And it was a great job, the great boss, Peter Lesky was the chief winemaker, and we still, get on really well. And, he's like basically a walking encyclopedia in winemaking. So any questions, he's the one to ask. But just that liberation of, right, I'm going to build a shed. And so, we knocked down by hand, me and my dad and my few mates. And then, built this sort of old shed, bit of concrete on the floor, electricity.
How good's that?
Running water. Whoa. That was a perfect little spot because it's shaded by trees. We get a bit of, afternoon sun if we need it. And it just, I don't know, it just seemed like the perfect little spot to make small batch wine and just use the sun as your heat, shade as your cooling. And, basically where we live, I've done so much work, 10 acres that we have, and a gorgeous old house. We've just put a beautiful extension on and dug into the hill.
Room is phenomenal.
And so, we're going nowhere. I'm going to die there, So it's really, it's a lovely way that it sort of has evolved, and it's nice to be able to have this creative scratch in your life, and that's what winemaking is. There's a basis of science, understanding, but really it's it's sort of scratching that creative itch, the artistic part of it that I love, and that's what I'll be up at 3 in the morning and I think, that wine, oh God, it tastes good, and it's a new one. Oh, what label will I put on that? And you have all these gorgeous feelings, and that's what keeps you, I suppose, motivated to keep doing it. And then for other people to appreciate it and go, that tastes quite nice, mate. Really good. Can I get another bottle?
Yep.
Sure, buddy. And, to make a nice, simple living and have time to spend with, Amber and the kids. And I mean, for example, Thursday we're off to Tuscany for a month
I know,
on
that
holiday.
sounds great.
and so I'm a bit mental now,
Yep,
trying to
getting ready.
get things ready for bottling and, making sure that the wine's all schmickola. And, but,
no surfboards on the strip?
No, we're sort of just, probably won't even, I suppose I should go check out a few wineries, but I just want to just sit around and every place we've got has got a nice pool, and there's one area sort of on the beach, this little resorty bit, and just want to sit around and read and drink and eat and sleep and read and eat and drink and sleep, and that's hang out with the family and just soak up some sun, just to thaw out a bit for this, because
it's cold up here. I found that out last night.
Yeah, but I love the cold, love the autumn, especially. But now it's winter, it can drag on a bit sometimes. So you just have a little escape, and that, having that in your lifestyle is really just, pretty lucky, touch wood.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's a nice,
well done, mate.
Nice
well
place
done.
to be.
I'll probably wrap up pretty soon. I was just coughing a bit from the pepper on this delicious drink. I'm just having a bit more of it. When you were travelling through, this is completely changing subjects, through Mexico. So you spent quite a bit of time on the coast. You were surfing there?
Just so we didn't go far. We were just sort of camping out in the combi and just eating tacos, drinking margaritas and surfing in spots that probably shouldn't have in hindsight, like.
Was it any sketchy moments? Or?
A couple. I'd sort of pull up at this spot and go, no one's out, but look at that little peeling wave, shit, I'll just paddle out there. And then, you're on a wave and you're coming in, oh, fuck, that's why, because there's a massive rock ledge there. And and you go, okay. A couple of, show close little calls, but that whole sort of, even the south of the state, California, just, gets a bit crowded, but...
down to San Diego.
But, and where I lived was in Santa Barbara, and there's this one little surf spot called Rincon, this just long right-hander. It'd get packed, but it's just so long that you could just, and I sort of years ago converted as getting an older, lazy man to the longboard.
To the longboard, nice.
And,
no stand-up paddleboard yet?
No way, yeah. And and this guy I worked for, Seth, we'd wake up in the morning and ready to go to the winery. He'd be like, Taris, man, there's beautiful 3-foot peeling clean waves down in Rincon. How about we just go for a quick surf this morning and then we'll go to the winery? I'd be like, yeah, man, sure, because, I was just on salary, like, whatever. Yeah. We go for a surf. We'd stand there for, 3 hours, get out of the water about 10, and then, there's an hour's drive to Santa Maria where the winery was. We'd get there, do the plunges, and it was lunch. And then he'd forget, we've got this dinner we've got to go to tonight back down at Santa Maria. So we've got to go at 3. I'm like, cool, man. So he just was a really gorgeous man, amazing knowledge, and gave me that sort of idea of, you're only making a drink, mate. You're not solving world peace. Yeah. This is, there's no room for ego because you are doing nothing special. Yep. You're just making a drink, and just his relaxed sort of way that he approached it all, and his humility was, what I really admired about him. And so, I've just, I don't know, tried to be the same. And, I've worked around the world, and, you know yourself, there's a lot of guys out there that think they're pretty fucking amazing. I'm making a drink. And what's that word? There's some joke. What's the difference between God and a winemaker? Yeah. God doesn't think he's a winemaker. Yeah, and, that's it. So it's just ridiculous, So just keeping a check on things and realising that you just you're painting a house, or you're frying a steak, or
you do the best you can, but it's,
it's nothing special. It's not like people out there that are saving lives, or doing rocket surgery, or whatever, whatever it is. We're just dumb fuck winemakers. Yeah. Just remember that. And
absolutely.
But it is lovely when people, get a bottle and pour it in a glass. Suddenly the glass is empty, bottle's empty, and they're like, whoa, thanks for that. That's great. Really enjoyed it. And it is a nice feeling. Hey, it does. What
was there a moment when you were out somewhere with Amber or not, unexpectedly, and like a table ordered a wine or brought it to a restaurant one of the first times?
Our wines?
Yeah.
Trying to think. Yeah, I mean, there is one cool little thing that happened right in the beginning. So it was our first vintage, 2008, and I used to always go to this pub called the Exeter Hotel in Rundle Street. Now, the Exeter Hotel back in that day had this amazing wine writer called Philip White. He worked at the Advertiser. He was there. That's where you dropped your samples off, at the pub. He was there all the time. He was an amazing wordsmith, or still is. But back then he worked for the Advertiser, which is the big Adelaide paper. Anyway, their wine list there, I'm sure it had something to do with him and the licensee Kevin, who loved good wine. Their wine list was amazing, and they were the highest place for selling Krug in the Southern Hemisphere, or something like that.
That pub?
That pub, yeah. I mean, you can go there now and get a bottle of Krug. I think it's $400, but they fly through it. They've even got their own little special butcher glasses that Krug, I think, have made for them,
That's great.
Anyway, so I went in there with our first release and brought the bottle in, just up to the bar, ordered a pint, and Kevin, the owner's there, and I said, g'day, mate. Look, yeah, my name's Taris Ochota. I've got this little winery. I was wondering if you'd like to try my wine. He's like, yeah, sure. So he tries the wine. He's looking at me peering over his glasses, like a suspect. And he's like, yeah, that's all right. And then he says, why'd you call it Ochota? I said, that's my surname. And he goes, are you related to Ivan Ochota? Johnny Ochota? I'm like, yeah, that was my grandfather, because my grandfather lived in Clare Valley.
Really?
Had a little vineyard
I didn't
up
know
there.
that.
They moved from the Ukraine after the Second World War, and in the 60s he planted this vineyard. And so, yeah, he just, used to sell his fruit to Jim Barry mainly, and the co-ops around that time. But he used to spend a lot of time at the pub. And this guy, Kevin, had the pub up there at the time. And so he goes, yeah, I knew your grandfather really well, because he was always in the pub. And, he'd smoke his specky filters and, just back in those days, just driving the old Kingswood back, with your hand over one eye just to keep it in the middle of the white lines and no worries. And so he's telling me all these stories about my grandfather, because he passed away when I was about, I think, 12 years old. So I never really got to know him as an adult. And so he's telling me these cool stories. And so from that moment, he's like, he's looking at me over these glasses. He goes, yeah, I'll take the wine. And after all these stories he told me about my grandfather in the space of, 15 minutes, I was so enlightened. I said, mate, how's this for the first deal? If you buy me another pint, and I'll give you this 6-pack of our first, little Grenache Fugazi vineyard as a swap, but it always has to be on that front shelf. And there's this one section in the Exeter where you see them, sitting at the bar, and there's the, just the, the cool little bottles of wine that I used to see. I used to go there from, when I was 16 or something, this pub, and so I always knew about this little section. It says, as long as you always keep it there. And he has stuck to his word. And so, for the last, 11 years now, our wine, generally, if we have it, is, on this one little section, and he keeps it there. We have a beautiful gentleman's agreement. I don't swap him a pint of beer for a box of wine anymore, but sure, he'd love that if I could. But yeah, it was quite a nice way to sort of meet someone that has now supported us, but for him to tell all these amazing stories about my grandfather,
great.
Back in the day. So awesome. That would be one little snippet. Yeah, but it is nice, you go out to a restaurant and you see people ordering your wine, and now where we are in Lost in the Forest, our sort of like a little restaurant, and sort of our cellar door, and obviously the list is a bit heavy on the Ochota Barrels.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because maybe I do the wine list, and
we need to talk about that later.
You'll pop in and to have a little margarita, and so these customers ordering your bottles and loving it, and it's a great feeling. No one's hallucinating or vomiting, which is handy.
Nice.
So that's good.
Brave new world.
Yeah.
So what's where to from here? Is it you constantly searching for new vineyards, or? No. Basically, we have just a gentleman's handshake agreement with our growers, and we pay them straight away, and we stick to the same little blocks, and we're not going to expand. Just in that nice little sweet spot. Not going to make some Calvados? Or?
No, the liver would not be happy about that. I've actually had that thought, or was offered the opportunity and declined it just for the health of my liver, because I knew, there's no more projects. We put our little vineyard in, we extension our house, no more children, no more other businesses, nothing actually.
Great.
Just to breathe now, and I'm 48 years old now, and so I'll be 50 next year, so an old man, and so just need to take stock and smell the roses, and that's one thing I suppose Amber's really taught me. I was always, we'd go for our morning walks, and I'd always be like, so how's this idea? We plant this vineyard, and we'll use single stakes and all this sort of thing, and come up with these ideas, and she'd be like, and then add to it, and I'd always be thinking about sort of tomorrow and the future. She lives in the moment, and it's a much better way to live, I think,
absolutely.
and I try, and I'm getting better at it, sort of learning this from her. But the classic was, I think we were on holiday in Thailand, and we're sitting on this beach and, drinking a mojito and, just been for a swim and about to get served some, little chili prawns or something on this beach, and, just absolute perfection. And I'm like, anyway, honey, so next holiday, we should go to Canada snowboarding. And she's like, mate, just enjoy the moment. Wow. Shut up, and that's when I realised, I've got a problem. And so, that's why we've sort of gone, I think that's contributed to doing so many crazy things in our life, and it's been great, but enough's enough. We've sort of lived overseas for, lived in Sweden for 3 years and travelled around the world. We go away a lot, and that's lovely, and different businesses like this and children, but now's the time just to breathe and just sit around and watch the birds fly in the air.
Well, I'm the same a little bit, where there's always another project on the go, and I'm starting to realise that perhaps it's not the way to go, that we've got the vineyard and now a podcast, I guess, but let's open a pizza restaurant, or
well, I suppose you took off a big chunk a couple of years ago, and thought, whoa, but you did it for, that sort of, I suppose, that future and the family, and you did it for the, the right reasons. I suppose you couldn't get enough organic fruit, so you said, right, how about let's stuff our lives up and sell our beautiful house with our little vineyard and start all over again. Like you were saying, you had these mature fruit trees that you had to goodbye, and let's plant little saplings again, but those times will come around again, and obviously, you think about these things, and luckily we have our clever wives, because we're pretty retarded, and to sort of just go, that's a stupid idea, Ben. But actually, no, that's a good one, Ben. Well done. Nice thought. We're quite lucky to have all that.
Exactly. Well, thanks, mate. Thanks for the time. I think there's probably restaurants about to open downstairs. And anything else
that's
you
cool,
want
mate.
to add? Or
No, it's all good. Good chatting. Thanks for popping in, mate, all the way from Margs. And
no worries.
Have to do the same.
Yeah,
if you
welcome anytime.
Get some cocktails out of the esky, and yes, definitely.
Good stuff.
Speaking of which, this is empty. I'll show you this other cocktail we make. So we've got a Meyer lemon tree at home. Prolific, gorgeous. They're like a cross between mandarin and lemon. It's just insane lemon tree, and so we make this mezcal-based margarita with pink Himalayan salt, but also there's this agave worm salt, so it's like dried agave worms with like chili powder, and so you have a bit of that on there with this gorgeous Meyer lemon freshly squeezed juice, mezcal, and a Himalayan salt ring. We're going to have one right now,
cool.
Mate. I like it. Let's do that.
Cool. All right, let's get Andrew, the sound guy, and
rock and roll. Cheers, mate.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Taras Ochota. Taras's website is ochotabarrels.com. You can find links to this and his Instagram and other things we spoke about at our website, realwinepeople.com. Be sure to subscribe if you'd like to listen to more. Thank you.